Hey everyone, this is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome to the Mad Science Lab. Continuing on today with the My Thoughts on My Team series. Today we have Mike Kashuba joining me to break down his Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Hey Aaron, what's going on?
Not a whole lot, just got off work and we've been in pre-recording for about 4 minutes and I've been interrupted 4 times. So this is going to go well, I'm sure of it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where we can find you and whatnot?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at FFLWOS_Mike Cash. That's fantasy football, last word on sports. You can find all of my articles over at Last Word on Sports, and then I'm also helping out the Dynasty DNA crew. So a couple of different places, but you just Google Mike Kashuba, you'll find me somewhere.
Sounds like a plan. I'm kind of the same way. You just type in FF Mad Scientist and you can find me literally anywhere.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for joining me. Your team is the Pittsburgh Steelers, so let's get into that. We'll start with a little bit of a roster breakdown. We'll go through it position by position. Excuse me, too much pop. Got me burping here. Start at quarterback. This one's pretty simple. It's Kenny Pickett's show. It's his job. I don't anticipate Mitch Trubisky seeing the field unless Kenny Pickett gets hurt. So Kenny Pickett, mid-range QB2, you think?
I think this is a hot take and also definitely a homer pick. I think he could sneak into the low QB1 range. He's got a plethora of weapons on the outside. Last year, on a points per game basis, I think he was floating in the QB2 range, and we know quarterbacks in their year one always struggle, so he could make a big year two jump.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, but not a whole lot more to say there, really. It's Pickett's show. You're not going to see Trubisky, so we'll just leave that one. I think that's pretty straightforward. Some of the teams have more jumbled up QB situation. This isn't one of them. So Kenny Pickett, like you said, could be a low end QB1, at very least a mid range 2. So we'll see where he goes from there. As far as running back, you've got these starters and backups are according to ESPN. So that's how I downloaded it. You may disagree with some of them. They have it listed as Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, with the backups being Anthony McFarland and Jason Huntley. What are your thoughts on these 4?
Yeah, the Steelers are one of those old school teams that they're still using a bell cow running back. So when you're looking for fantasy, I mean, Najee Harris is probably one of 2 or 3 guys that's going to get 70 to 80% of snaps. Jaylen Warren started to eat into that a little bit last year, but I think Harris is primed for another running back one season, and Jaylen Warren's there as the clear-cut handcuff in case Najee goes down.
Yeah, Warren looked good last year when Najee went down, so it's kind of one of those things where you figure maybe it's part of the system, gives them a boost. Obviously, Najee came off a bad year last year. He was pretty much a first-round pick in every league. And I know the ones where I ended up drafting him, I hated it. At some point, I couldn't give him away. I ended up holding on to him simply because I couldn't drop him and I couldn't get anything for him. And he did end up paying dividends the last few weeks of the season, but, it definitely didn't return on the round 1 ADP. I think I got him at 111 or 112 the few times I did draft him. I don't know. Do you think he returns to an RB1 this year, high-end RB2? What are your thoughts on his outlook?
Yeah, so there were a lot of problems with the Steelers' offense as a whole, and then Najee specifically. He was coming off of a minor Liz Frank injury, so it wasn't quite to the level of ETN that he was out the whole year, but he was kind of nursing that, clearly not the same explosive self. And as you saw later in the years, he got a little more time to heal, get a little more time back to form. He's an awesome pass catcher. He's a truck when he's in the open field. And as the offense was bad, there were less red zone opportunities. As the offense gets better this year, he's going to have a plethora of them.
Sounds good. Do you think he gets back into the RB1 range?
Oh, easily. I think he can sneak into RB 6 to 7 range.
Sounds good. Moving on to the wide receiver room. There's a whole lot of names here, and really there are only 2 that are going to be fantasy relevant. ESPN has Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Allen Robinson, with the bench being Calvin Austin, Anthony Miller, Miles Boykin, and Des Fitzpatrick. I imagine Miller, Boykin, and Fitzpatrick will be completely useless. Calvin Austin I had hopes for, but it doesn't seem that the speed guy is going to get much of a chance. Allen Robinson, I want nothing to do with. I've done this for years, and he's past his prime. I'm not playing this game anymore like we did with Julio. I think I've been trying to buy low on Deontay and sell high on Pickens. Pickens is a guy I really loved as a rookie. I just don't know if he's ever going to get the volume. I feel like he's going to be overvalued just because he's going to make one highlight reel OBJ one-handed catch per game. But I think I'd rather have Deontay. What are your thoughts?
100% agree. George Pickens profiles more as this like vertical threat. He's going to make the highlight catches. He's going to make the cool ESPN Sports Center top 10s. But as far as fantasy goes, he's going to be frustrating. The weeks that you don't put him in your lineup, he's going to go 3 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. The weeks you do put him in your lineup, he's going to go 1 catch for 12 yards, and he gets ejected for starting a fight in the second quarter. So Deontay
that happened, didn't it? I forgot that he was in my lineup that week when it happened.
Yeah. So Deontay Johnson was a like fringe wide receiver 3 on a season where he had 0 receiving touchdowns. It goes back to the Najee thing and to the Kenny Pickett thing. If the offense is even medium, all of these guys are buy low targets.
Yeah, Deontay and Najee, you're right, are definitely ones that I'm buying low on. Kenny Pickett, I feel like he's a buy low as well, but I'm it's tough to tell the market. Moving on to tight end, we have Pat Freiermuth and the much hyped Darnell Washington. Freiermuth might be another one. You might have 4 buy lows on this team because they were so bad last year. I think Freiermuth could rebound and be a top 6 tight end again. Darnell Washington I loved and loved and loved until day 3 when it was revealed that, a knee injury they're worried about? And was it knee and another undisclosed leg injury? That's the reason he fell to day 3. And now I'm just completely out. He's not on my board.
Yeah, so he always profiled as a blocking tight end, and it's another reason to buy low on Najee Harris.
Or a tackle.
His floor is left tackle. So Freiermuth, this frees the Muth up to just be the move tight end that he always wanted to be. They were trying to use him as this actual tight end and make him a blocker. But now they can run a 2 tight end set with Deontay and Pickens on the outside and Harris in the backfield. And like that frees up Freiermuth to just run routes all of the time and get wide open. Washington's going to have a couple of touchdowns and spike weeks here and there, but at the tight end position, you score 3 touchdowns. You're a tight end,
yeah,
1 on the season.
Yeah. Look at, what was it? Taysom Hill had a 42-point week, didn't do anything the rest of the season, finished as tight end 3. So 1 week.
The tight end position is atrocious, and I can see something like that for Washington. So in best ball tournaments, if you didn't take Freiermuth, maybe your last pick in the draft, you take him for funsies, but anything other than that's a little too, much for me.
All right. My first one was Denver, and this was a tough question. This time it's going to be a tougher question because there's a lot of potential here. One target for this team in redraft. It's really tough for me. Kenny Pickett, I think, is a good value. I just don't know if he has the ceiling. For me, it would be, I think I'm going to wait on a lot of these guys, and depending on what I need, if I need a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end, I don't mind targeting Harris, Deontay, or Freiermuth. Do you have a personal preference of one you'd want to target most?
Yeah, I think I found myself targeting Deontay Johnson the most. It's
what
one
round?
Of those things
you said you have the best ball ADP. What round?
Yeah, so I actually have best ball rankings for a different team, but I can pull up Deontay Johnson real quick.
No worries.
I want to say he's actually going behind Pickens right now, which is
why I'm selling Pickens.
So if you can get Deontay Johnson, I think he's going like wide receiver 33 or 34, somewhere around there. And that's what he did with 0 touchdowns. So might as well swing for the fences. He's going to get the volume. He's going to get a touchdown or 2 at worst. So I think it's Deontay.
I'm going to own a lot of Deontay at that rate. And I suspect that's going to transition into me into my next one, my avoid. I think it's going to be George Pickens. The fact that he's going over Deontay, I think he's going to have his spike weeks and his flashy catches, but I think he's going to sneak his way into the top 30 in ADP. and I don't think I really want him at that price.
Yeah, I'm not going to take he is the wide receiver one in big air quotes, but for fantasy football, Deontay Johnson is likely going to finish higher in 2023. And for that reason, I'm going to avoid Pickens, even though my heart wants him in every way.
This is going to be a tough one. Do you have a sleeper? Originally, I would have said Darnell Washington, but the health is a scary one. The only thing I could maybe see is Warren, if it was, based on an injury replacement, or Calvin Austin if he sneaks into the lineup because Allen Robinson is just totally washed.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
So Calvin Austin is best case scenario, the wide receiver 3 that can sneak into a wide receiver 2 with an injury. But he has blazing speed. If you play in a league that gives you kick return points, there's a big chance that Austin is the kick returner this year.
Yeah.
And then he is just the kind of player that he's going to have a long touchdown. Maybe you pick him up, he has another long touchdown, and then you use him as trade bait.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's kind of a tough one here. You've got your 3 or 4, 5, maybe even, your pretty high-end players, and then not a whole lot of sleeper potential here. It's pretty boom or bust. Like I said, Washington, the injury scares me. Otherwise, I would have been all over him. Much better for the Muth, though, that he's not in the best of health. All right, they finished last year 9-8, preserving the winning season streak for Mike Tomlin. 8th in the AFC. Where do you see them finishing in their division this year? I'm thinking 3rd, maybe?
I think they have a real chance for 2nd. I'm not so unrealistic that I'm going to say we're going to blow everyone out of the water and, come out in 1st. But the Steelers have the Bengals number. Last year, they sacked Joe Burrow, I want to say 6 times in week 2 or something, just ruined his life that day. So going through there, the Browns are going to continue to Browns. Not worried about them at all. And then the Ravens, it depends. Can Lamar stay healthy? Is he going to have another dispute? Is Odell Beckham going to post Twitter videos of Lamar missing him? Is Odell's dad going to start making?
Yeah, I was going to say it'll be his dad doing that, not him.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong throughout the rest of it. And then if Kenny Pickett takes a step forward, if TJ Watt's healthy the whole year, there's a lot of opportunity for the Steelers to take a big step forward in 2023.
I could literally see them finishing anywhere between 2nd and 4th. It's kind of a scary division. I think they're better than the Browns. That could just be my own personal hatred for Deshaun Watson, though, but I'm not too sure. This roster, I mean, especially on offense for fantasy, it has some talent, but there's not a whole lot of depth here. You've got some really nice pieces, but just not, and even the pieces like Najee could be really elite, but I don't know if Pickett, Deontay, or Pickens, I don't know if any of them are particularly elite. This, I know you're a Steelers fan, but this roster doesn't necessarily, I don't find them particularly exciting. It's maybe Najee, if he slips to me a bit in the draft, I'd take, and Deontay's kind of someone I'm targeting in the middle rounds, but there aren't a whole lot of guys I'm really, marking off on my board and really chasing down. Deontay, I think, will be the one I own the most shares of. Any other thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the real value of the Pittsburgh offense this year is you do this for a living, you're wearing a Penguins jersey, and you still are not that excited about any of the pieces around here.
They're really boring.
They're all this is just the most medium roster, and now my dogs are yelling at me. Sorry if you can hear that, everybody.
It's all right. Mine will probably bark back.
The offense just needs to take the step forward, led by Kenny Pickett. And they went 9-8 last year with Kenny Pickett taking the 3rd string reps throughout all of camp. So now he's getting a whole year to work with the weapons, to develop the offense. I don't know if you've been reading some of the draft grades that are floating around. The Steelers are either 1, 2, or 3 in everybody's wish list of best drafts. So
I haven't really I could tell you they didn't do much on offense, and so far all I've really taken a look at, I've spent so much preparing for this podcast series this weekend that I've only really dove deep into the offensive part. Once I'm done this series, I get into my IDP sections and start with my IDP rankings, but I did hear they made some good moves primarily on defense, because all they added on offense, I think, was Darnell Washington. I mean, skill positions anyways.
Yeah. They also added a pretty okay left tackle in Broderick Jones, the like number 2 tackle in the draft.
Pretty okay. So you're just aiming for mid all the way around.
They also signed a bunch of interior offensive linemen in free agency. They've basically taken a poor offensive line that was the reason for a lot of struggles in 2022, bolstered it at every position, and then added a 6th offensive lineman in Darnell Washington.
So this offense is going to be middle of the pack unless we have a second-year progression from Kenny Pickett and a healthy Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson gets in the end zone. Then the sky's the limit. George Pickens, though, I think I'm going to avoid because I think he's just going to be too flashy.
I think the floor as a whole offense is, 15, 16 range. They're going to be better than the Falcons, but worse than the Chiefs.
I feel like this offense as a whole has a pretty, like the pieces you're going to own for fantasy, that is, I feel like they have a pretty solid floor, but it's whether they're healthy and develop is going to be, what their ceiling's going to be.
Hey, Kenny's baby hands are going to look really good holding that Lombardi.
Oh, God, don't even get me started on it. The shit we go through, I was having this conversation the other day about how just the swings with these stupid draft classes. This time last year, the 2023 class was the greatest thing we've ever seen. Now, after going into the draft and getting the landing spots, it's the biggest pile of dog shit you've ever seen. And in 3 months from now, when it's ready to do redraft season, all of a sudden it's going to be great again. We did this last year. The class was great. Then it got here and the class sucked. Then we drafted everyone. It turns out it was half decent class. Just fucking crazy. We get to the point where we micromanage and we start looking at things. We get Kenny Pickett downgraded because of the size of his fucking hands.
I think the big issue with the 23 class is you talk about top 5 running back prospects. Top 2 went to great landing spots. Past that, Charbonnet went to Seattle. Kendra Miller went to New Orleans. Tank Bigsby went to Jacksonville. You're looking at all these players that people are really excited. Tyjae Spears went to Tennessee. Everybody's just stuck behind somebody good. And then there's some offenses that are just rolling out Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson.
Yeah, I like Roshan, but
I like Khalil.
Right. Well, Mike, thanks for joining me once again. That was a quick look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was looking at the title and combined the first part of P and that turned into Pitt Steelers. It turned into the Panthers. I don't know how. Thinking hockey. I'm Canadian. I got hockey on the brain. So why don't you tell everyone again where they can find you?
Yeah, everybody. So you can find my articles over at Last Word on Sports. You can find me on Twitter at FFLWOS_Mike Cash. Probably should clean that up at some point.
Yeah, I was trying to do it earlier for the YouTube thumbnail. Yours was one of the more difficult ones. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's a whole mess right now. It's alphabet soup, Mike Cash. I mean, worst case scenario, just give me a Google Mike Kashuba.
It only was easier for me to find because I knew what the LWS stood for. But to anyone else, I'm going, okay, Mike last word on. Okay, gotcha. So
but
thanks again for joining me, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
All right, and I am Aaron St. Dennis, the Mad Scientist. You can catch me pretty much anywhere on social media at FF Mad Scientist, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any of that crap. You can catch my written work at DLF, Player Profiler, King Fantasy Sports, or the League Winners. And I'm also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at FF Mad Scientist. This has been another episode of the Mad Science Lab podcast. My thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers with Mike Kashuba. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks again, Mike.
See y'all.